Hey everybody, this is Michael at Gotcha Rocks, and today I'm going to show you how to set all these stones. So we have a princess cut and some rounds. Pretty sweet. Hey everybody, it's Michael at Gotcha Rocks, and today I have a fun project for you. Come on over here and check it out. So we have a pendant that was made by the lovely Liz. Picture inserted. Lucky for us, we were able to get away from that fish. All right, so what we have is this princess cut amethyst here, and then we have two diamonds. So the amethyst is going to go in here, and the two diamonds will go here. So this is going to be a great setting project just to show you, because we're going to do a little bit differently. We're going to have to drill some little tiny holes in here to protect these little points on the amethyst. And so then we'll pull the prongs over, and then this will do a normal sort of setting job. So we'll just use a regular setting burr. So this will be kind of interesting, and it'll kind of, if you want to start working with princess cuts or even pears, and let's see, anything that's not round basically that has a point, this will be great to learn. So let's get to it. Here's our mounting right here. And we're going to put this amethyst in. We're just going to set it in here to see how it fits. So we've got plenty of room. Sometimes you're going to have a tight fitting one, and you'll have to kind of open up the prongs a little bit, or maybe even drill in a little bit. So this actually fits in here pretty well and doesn't even move around. So I'm kind of lucky there. The next thing I want to do, so I'm going to turn this sideways so you can see. I want to figure out, and I'll hold this up here best that I can. I want to figure out where the girdle on the stone is hitting that prong, and then I want to mark it. So that's what I'm going to do right now. Now I'm going to use a Sharpie to mark this, and I'm doing that really just to show you where I'm going to mark it. Normally I would use like a little scribe or something like that. So I'm just going to mark this all the way around. And I don't know if you've ever worked with different types of gemstones. Often they'll be cut just slightly different, depending on who cut them, and if they were trying to cut for weight or cut for color, to make sure that it had a really nice rich color. But sometimes the bottoms will be sort of oblong and things like that. So you just kind of have to keep that in mind when you're setting these, and just try to find a spot where it's going to sit straight in the mounting. So I've marked the sides. If I was going to do this by myself and you guys weren't watching, I would just use my dividers here, and I would just go like this, find the spot where the girdle meets the prong, and then I would just make a little mark like this. And I'm going to do that as well. But I wanted to put that marker on there just so you could see what the heck I was doing. Here we go. And I'm going to work all the way around, make sure I get all four of them. Now, this point can change periodically as I start to set. And I remove metal and things like that. So be a little bit flexible on where those holes are going to be. Your goal really is to make the table of the stone as flat as possible. So I'm going to get set up, and then I'll come back and show you what I'm going to do. I just wanted to show this to you. This is a round burr, and I am using a 1mm round burr. The amethyst that I'm setting, this is a 9mm by 9mm, and all I'm trying to do is make a little divot in the prongs inside, right here, so that I can take a drill bit and insert it and drill out just a little bit, and that will protect those corner pieces from chipping the amethyst. So that is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to set this up, but I just wanted to show you that this is the type of burr that I'm using. So I'm using a really tiny one. Obviously they make these really big, and they also make them obviously very small. So I'm set up. I have this little ball burr here. This is the 1mm, and I went ahead and just kind of marked these little spots in here just with the black magic marker. I'm going to put my little scribe mark in there. And once again, this is just where that girdle kind of met. And this just gives me kind of one even line all the way across that I can shoot for when I'm trying to, we'll just call it balancing the top of the stone. So it looks good when it's in the pendant and doesn't look crooked. So I've scribed them because obviously this marker wipes right off. So we're going to take the little tiny ball burr here, and I'm just going to get it going kind of medium speed, and I'm just going to touch and make a little divot on each prong, right where that little mark is. Actually just below the little mark. Now it doesn't have to be very deep, it just has to be enough that I could put a drill bit on it and then drill into the prong just a little bit. This is more of your pilot hole, or a little divot there. So. I'm going to do this on all four. Here's a little tip: if you have this flex shaft going too slowly, it'll want to run around the prong. So if you get it going kind of fast and then touch it, it will just cut in. So I've made a divot right there on all four prongs. All right, next I'm going to switch over to a drill bit, and I have a very tiny one, which is right here. So you can kind of see, there you go. And this is a number 70. It is a 0.71 millimeters. I've switched out the drill bit, so we'll see if this one's a little bit sharper. Now, once I get this kind of drilled in just a little bit, and see if I can show this to you. So this is the one I'm drilling into, right here. Once I have a pilot hole started, I like to move back and forth just a little bit, and that widens out the top of the prong here. So it'll kind of match the profile of the stone. So I'm going to keep going here and just drill in just a little bit further. Alright, now I'm going to just keep going around. I'm going to do all four of these. Okay, so I have drilled all the holes, and I'm hoping that you're going to be able to see what's going on there. So just kind of turn it sideways. You should see a little divot where I put the drill bit in. And so that's on all four of these. So it goes all the way around. And what that's going to do is that's going to kind of leave a little seat for the points of the amethyst. So what I'm going to do next, and I'll try to point this out, the pavilion of the stone, I'm going to just cut just a little angle here with a graver on all these four corners, just so that that stone nestles in there very nicely and it's not being held right on a facet or something like that. I just want to alleviate any pressure that could potentially cause the stone to break or chip. So that's what I'm going to do next, and then we'll actually start adjusting these prongs. This is an Onglette graver, and it's kind of got like a V shape, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of grave take my graver and just cut away a little of this metal right here to leave a little notch for the stone to rest in. So that's what I'm doing. So if you don't have a graver, I'm going to show you another little trick. I have my drill bit. You could also come from the behind the mounting like this and kind of graver out a little spot with your drill bit. So I'll do that for you too, just to show you how to do it. I'm testing out my amethyst just to see how it fits in here, and it looks pretty secure. What I'm going to do next, I feel like it's ready to pull the prongs over. So I'm going to remove this, but before I do that, I'm going to start with this prong here, and I'm actually just going to bend it with my pliers and just give myself at least one prong that's kind of pulled over, and if I need to do any adjusting, I will. What you could do potentially is actually do two, so I might do that as well. So, you know, each stone is a little bit different, so I'm just going to do with do whatever works. I'm using my wax stick here. This is just some beeswax put on a dowel rod, and that will remove the stone. So, just like so. So this is the prong that I'm going to pull over. I'm just going to bend it. I've already drilled my pilot hole and everything like I showed you. So I'm just going to bend it over. I'm just going to check to see if my how my stone fits in here. That will be good enough. So I can actually go down just a little bit lower. Now I did notice that this mounting was just a little bit bigger than what I needed, so I'm just kind of moving the prongs in a little bit. You can see that that's coming over the stone a little bit now. I'm not going to completely tighten this up. I want to leave myself a little room. But I am going to pull this next prong over here and then just see how the stone fits in here. So that's what I'm going to do next. Often I'll go in with a small Barrett file, like one of your needle files, and I'll clean up these prongs as well so that the bottom part of it is kind of flat instead of the round, and that way it'll just fit nicely on top of the stone. So I'm giving this some pressure. You probably could hear my fingers snap, cracking there. So there you go. So we can get that in there. There we go. So that's starting to sit in there pretty good. So you can see that these prongs are coming over. And what we'll do is we'll get these all adjusted so they're pointing right to the center, and then just tighten everything up. So I'll just keep messing with it. So I adjusted the two prongs here, and what I'm going to do, this is the little Barrett file, but it's you know, a needle file. So I'm just going to come underneath, and I'm just going to flatten off this area, just so it sits on top of the stone just a little bit nicer. And take your time. You want to have this as perfect as possible. Now that I have this kind of set up, what I'm going to do is take a black magic marker, and this should be fine for like most gemstones. I probably wouldn't do this if you're setting turquoise or opal or anything like that, but for any of these stones that have crystal, you can usually take your Sharpie and just put a little dot on there, and it'll come off just with a little soap and water, sometimes even just the oil from your own fingers. So what this does is it tells me that this side of the amethyst needs to go to these 2 prongs. And then, so like when I start working on these diamonds and stuff like that, which is what I'm going to work on next, I can pick up my amethysts, whatever, an hour, 2 days, a week, whatever it would be, and I know exactly where it needs to go. So that's why I put that mark on there. Our next step is setting these diamonds, which are right here. These diamonds are approximately, I think they're 3.3 millimeters each. And what I have is 3 setting burrs, and I'm just going to figure out which one works best. So these are the setting burrs. You know, basically the bottom of this is shaped like the bottom of a diamond, so it kind of looks like the pavilion. So we'll use these to make a nice little seat on each one of these little 4 prongs here, and then we'll put the diamond in and set it. So I've picked out 3 of these setting burrs. One is a 3 millimeter, one is like a 3.2, and then the largest one is actually a 3.5. I might use this 3.5 just as to make a kind of a perfect seat, and then actually squeeze the prongs in and have them kind of match up with the diamond size. I have my setting burr set up and my flex shaft, and I decided to use the 3.2. So I can always, you know, there's going to be a little bit of extra metal always that gets removed. So I think this will work out pretty well. I'm going to add a little bit of our flex shaft, or a little bit of our burr life onto our burr that is in the flex shaft. And for setting these, if you haven't seen this before, I like to go kind of straight in. And I'm trying to hit all these prongs evenly, and I'm just going to kind of make a mark. And I want each prong to have the same amount of cut. So I'm just kind of basically measuring down a little bit. I'm just picking a spot. I'm probably going just a little bit, maybe about 1/3 down, something like that. And that'll give me enough metal to pull over. So once I have those marks in there, then I can go back in and fine tune it. So I'm going to do that with both of these. So all the marks are even for each one. Next I'm going to go in and I'm going to kind of individually do each prong, and I'm just going to make a little seat. And I'm going right where I had made that mark. So I'm just going to do a little mark there. There's one little seat. I assume this is probably going to be difficult to see, but I'll try to make sure that you can at least see something. You can see that I'm going straight in. I'm not creating an angle. I want this to just be, you know, just a notch. And that, you know, I'm cutting away metal from the top of the prong down to that little mark that I made. Also, pay attention to sort of the sound of the flex shaft. You can tell I'm not doing this. I'm keeping it at a nice, steady, slow speed. And I'm just going to check here, make sure that everything is even. If you have one prong that's off or something like that, you can have your diamond kind of dipping off to one side. And if you have more than one stone, it's really going to be noticeable, so keep that in mind. Now I'm fine tuning it. Alright, so I like to do this. I like to kind of go around like I did, make the mark, then do a little bit of cutting, then fine tune it, as opposed to just cutting straight in and cutting all the metal away, and then I have, you know, no room to adjust. So that looks pretty good to me. This one looks a little bit high, so there we go. Alright, so now I'm going to do the next. set, which is this one closest to the big setting. So when I'm doing this one, just because I'm having a difficult time seeing, I'm kind of pulling up as opposed to pushing down. So I push down like this and cut in this way. With this one, I'm actually pulling up and cutting the upper ones. So one's closest to the camera at the moment. Okay. All my little seats, I want to make sure that they all match. Make any fine-tuning adjustments that you need to. If you kind of hurry this process, you can get to a point where you have a few stones set, and then you have to go back through, open up the prongs again, and then make your adjustments. It's better to just do it right the first time. So, okay. That looks pretty good. I'm going to show you one other little thing that I see people do. If you're trying to figure out like the depth that you should cut into your prong, once you kind of figure that out, you can take a Sharpie and you just mark your burr. You can mark your burr so that you can just stop where the ink stops. So if I was cutting in, I would just stop right there. I have one of the diamonds just resting on the top of this mounting, and right here. And it looks like the diamond is just a little bit big. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up the prongs a little bit so that it'll sit in there. And I have the other one sitting here on my little wax stick. And so they almost fit, so I just need to adjust this lower one here. So they're slightly different sizes, it looks like. So this is a customer's diamonds, so we're using those from a previous mounting. So all I'm going to do is this. I'm going to take my pliers, and I'm gently opening these up. You know, I'm not, gripping this thing like I'm trying to change a tire on a car. I'm just opening it up a little bit. I'll do the same for this other one. That way the girdle of the diamond will sit right on those little seats that we made. Alright, and if you need to do any fine tuning, then do some fine tuning. Alright, I have my first diamond positioned here, and I have these pliers. And what I'm going to do, and these are the chain nose, so they're smooth on the inside. I'm just going to grab the two opposing prongs, and I'm going to squeeze them in. And I kind of rock back and forth. So you've got these two, 1, 2, that are kind of holding the stone. Now I'm going to do the same with the other two. So once I get them a little bit tight, then I kind of change my angle and I start bending the prong over. Okay. Now I'm just paying attention to the stone and making sure that it's as straight as possible. Once it looks like it's pretty good, I'll kind of come over on the top of the prong, and I'll do one side and then I'll flip over to the other side. I'll squeeze that down a little bit. And I'll go over to this side. And I'll do that one. And I'm just doing a tiny bit at a time. If you really squeeze it, your stone's going to become crooked. So don't do that. Okay. So I'm using my wax stick to kind of move this around a little bit. Try to position it in there so it's as straight as it can be. Alright, so same thing here. I'm going to squeeze on either side gently. I'm going to push on the top just so that those prongs really sit down on top of the diamond. You know, I don't want them sticking up so that every time she wears her sweater that it catches or something like that. So that'll look pretty good. Alright, so what I'll do next after that is I'll come back to this Barrett file. And because these are diamonds, they're super tough. I'm just going to dress it like this back and forth until it's nice and smooth and I don't feel any sharp spots. So I'll do that next. If you will remember, I had drilled those little pilot holes into the side, and you remember that I kind of came through and flattened out this part here. Well, you know, we're going to have to do that before we actually even put the stone in. So I'm just going to make kind of a little flat area so that'll fit nicely on top of the table of the amethyst. And I'm going down to that little notch. So my little notch is right here. So I'm just making that part the flat part because it's going to bend at the weakest part of the prong, which is where I put the little hole. Now I'm going to fit the amethyst in. Remember I had put that black mark on there with the marker. So that goes to the prong side. Just lost it there. There we go. Gently put it in there. Check these other two prongs. Make sure that those are still looking good. And we are going to attempt to pull these two prongs over. If you're working with white gold like I am, and you get to a point where these just are really resisting moving, you can thin out a little bit of the back, and we'll see if we have to do that or not. That'll just make, it's kind of like cutting a tree, you know, you do a little wedge and then the tree will fall a certain way. Well, it's kind of the same theory, so we'll just take a little bit off there if we need to. So I'm going to try pulling them without. I think all my little notches match up with the girdle of the stone, so I think we'll be okay. I'm going to, you know, I use these pliers that I've kind of like tapered down so they're like a really sharp point. For these larger prongs, I'm going to get one that's actually a little bit bigger. And here's a little trick. Inside, I always put like a little dot. I just take a ball burr and drill it out. And I do this with each side of it. So one here, one here. That way I can kind of catch the top of that prong and pull it over. So, cross your fingers, here we go. So, you know, with a princess cut, I want to be really careful of these points. So I don't want to force it or put too much pressure on there. Right now it's tight. So I don't want it to be tight just yet because I still have a bit of metal to pull over. So I'm actually going to open these up a little bit more and cut just a little more space to pull over so that there isn't any pressure on those points. What I'm looking for is any little bit of light underneath or kind of in between the stone and the prong. So if I see that, I know it needs to go over just a touch more. So. Okay, it's tight. Now what I'm going to do is trim back these prongs. Alright, for this particular one, I am going to use excuse me, a saw. I'm just going to cut a little bit of this end off so that I have a little more of the stone exposed. I think that'll look good. Now if your stone becomes a little bit loose at this point, you still have an opportunity to squeeze these prongs down just a little bit more, so don't worry about it. If you cut the prong off completely, you got a problem, but that's not what I'm doing. There we go. Next, I'm going to use this rubber wheel right here. And this is a stone safe wheel, and I have this on the website. There's a tool list for stone setting. This is on that list. So I think I got these through Rio Grande, but I have the number on there. So it allows me to be able to hit this stone, and it's not going to cut into it. So I have everything cleaned up with the rubber wheel, and all these prongs are looking good. I kind of going like this, getting that ink off of the stone. The stone is tight, the diamonds are tight. I cleaned those up with the rubber wheel, and now I have my cotton wheel, and I'm using Zam to polish this. So I'm gonna start to polish. So, and I'll do this over the whole thing and make sure I hit all the little spots. Be really careful. Just make sure that you're not running this on the stone really hard or anything like that. It should be fine, but also just look for any little tool marks, your file, your pliers, or anything like that. Okay, that looks good. I'm ready to clean it, and I'll shoot a picture of it afterwards, and so you can check it out. But that's it. So things to keep in mind. Always make sure that your points on your princess cuts don't have much pressure on them. You drill those pilot holes so that they're not they don't have the pressure on them. So and then the prongs come over the the girdle and catch the stone, and that's where most of the force comes down as opposed to the points. Your diamonds here, that was pretty straightforward. Using the right size setting burr is really important, and being a little bit flexible. Sometimes you have to move those prongs in or out, and just make sure that everything's level. So I'm going to clean this, and I'll show you when I'm done. But if you have any questions on this, just let me know. I'm sure there will be some, and we'll want to put a stamp on here and saying that it's 14 karat. But other than that, it's done, and I can give it back to the lovely Liz, and she can feed a chain through there and solder it, and it'll be good to go. So see you in a minute. Here's the final piece. It's all set and ready to go. So it looks pretty good. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Share this video if you think it helps somebody out. And also you can pick up the free tool list at gotcharocks.com. I'll see you guys in the next video. I hope this helped you out. Take care.